Well, thanks for joining me today. We're looking at Romans chapter 8, verse 36. Paul writes here, "As is written, for your sake we are being killed all the day long. We are regarded as sheep to be slaughtered." This is somewhat surprising. Verse 35, Paul has given us a list of all these different terrible things that can happen to us in this world. He's reminding us here that these things cannot separate us from the love of Christ. Again, we'll get Paul's official answer in verse 37. But here, this is much more of a graphic reality, kind of a more startling reality to what it means to be a follower of Christ in this world and what can happen to us. What makes this really startling here is kind of two aspects. First of all, Paul says we're being killed, here it is, all the day long. Like, all the day long? I mean, what does that mean? I don't feel that. I'm not aware of that. And then we regard as sheep to be slaughtered. Again, that's very, very graphic. So Paul here quotes from Psalm 44, specifically verse 23. In Psalm 44, there's some confusion in Israel, but what is happening to them as far as God seemingly being very, very inactive toward them. In the past, he was very active. He did great things. So in the beginning of the Psalm, verses 1 through 3, you have this pronoun them repeated. Them refers to God's people in the past, and it shows all the different activities that God did out of his love for his people. Then verses 4 through 8, there's kind of a transfer here. It moves from the word them to the word us, but still it's talking about us as God's people back then. But then 9 and following, it's using the pronoun us to referring to God's people now at the time of the psalm. Where are you at, God? God, you're not acting for us now as you acted for them back then or for us back then. And again, the confusion, verse 17, the psalmist says, we've not forgotten you. We've not been false to your covenant. I mean, what's wrong with us? And much time in our suffering, no matter what kind it is, here specifically it's persecution, we think, what have I done wrong? What have I done wrong here? And Paul knows that's our default. But the key phrase here is, for your sake. This means that it's not about us, it's about God. And that means that God has a reason and a purpose for our suffering. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 11, Jesus says, "Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account." Or the word is similar here to Romans 8, for my sake. So Paul is saying here, don't look inward like there's something wrong with you as you're going through this. There's not. But look upward. And be content with that this is for him and it's not for us to know. And again, the great encouragement for us is we're not going to be separated from Christ, no matter what we're going through. Now again, this phrase, all day long, is strange. But Paul is saying here in one sense, this is our state that we're in this world right now. The state, as Romans 8 describes it, as a state of groaning, and that groaning includes persecution. And maybe that's not you right now as far as this verse, that you are a sheep to be slaughtered. No one's coming after you and persecuting you like this. But you, as a believer with other believers in Christ, that is always our state in this present age. And again, this verse would be very encouraging for believers in Rome under Emperor Nero. Again, in the coming years, they'd be blamed for a fire in Rome. And they did not start this fire, but Nero would accuse them of doing this. And so this is just a reminder that as Christians, we always have to be willing to accept whatever it is for Christ, for his sake. And that's the point for you and for me. We have to accept the state that we're in this world right now, that we are sheep to be slaughtered. I mean, all these blessings we have in Romans chapter 8, and they become like a refuge for us. We know that we may be slaughtered. But yet in the midst of that, we never lose our refuge in Christ. And this is the great tension we live under. Great suffering, great comfort. So don't get too comfortable. Don't get too proud and feel like nothing bad can happen to you. But just continue to enjoy and rest in the refuge of Christ, no matter what happens to you. Be willing to accept whatever comes your way.